Welcome to the Money Mentors Podcast.
Well, this week's list here on Money Mentors comes to us from Kiplinger, and it's a really good one here. 4 do's, 4 don'ts, and 1 never, they say, for those of you who are nervously nearing retirement. So, Gerald, Laurel, these are some really good ones to think about, so I thought we'd go through them here this weekend with our listeners. Number 1 on their list of the do's first. Do know how much income you will need from your investments and when you will need it. I think this is probably number 1 on our list too, right? Retirement's about income flow, right?
Yes, I appreciate it being number 1.
Yeah.
Too, for that reason.
These are some of the first couple of questions I ask clients when I meet them is, how much are you bringing home right now? And I'm not talking about gross. I don't need to know at that point how much you're putting away. I'm like, what goes into the bank?
Right.
Yes.
Because that's what you're living off of right now.
It's the budget word that you're not going to call it that because that's okay.
Right.
But you're right. It's your yo-yo account and things like that.
Right. You're doing what you want to right now based off that money that's coming in while you're working. So that is my baseline today. So if you retired yesterday, then my goal is to create a plan that provides that income throughout your retirement. Now, if you're not retiring, this goes to the second part. When are you going to retire? Give us a plan. We need to know where the end zone is to create a plan, knowing that, hey, it could change, the flag on the play or something like that, or, we get a few extra free yards. There's nothing wrong with that, but we have to have an idea where the end zone is so we can create a good plan and when you'll need it. Because if you're saying, well, I'm living off of $6,000 a month right now, we're doing everything we want, we're saving a little bit of money, well, that's going to be different in 5 years, right? We have to build in inflation. $6,000 now is not going to be $6,000 in 5 years. So what do we have to do in order to generate that same amount of income throughout your retirement starting in 5 years? Because that number is going to be higher.
And the interesting piece about the when is not everybody can speak to, hey, I know in 5 years from now something's going to happen with my health. Obviously, but that's why your plan has to be flexible. And we're going to build in some of those things too. And one thing to know before you retire, some people might think, hey, I retired, I can start taking money in the next week or 2. Well, sometimes after you separate from employment, whether that's separation, retirement, whatever that is, it could be 30 days until that's available. So these are the questions you need to start asking and thinking about, and we'll help you with to guide you along the way. But another reason why I definitely suggest not going alone.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense, thinking through some of the details, not just the numbers, but also the logistics there. Good point there, Laurel. Number 2 on their list here of the do's to think about when you're approaching retirement, do tune out the noise. And I think that could come from different sources, the financial networks, but also friends, family, colleagues, people going through the same things, but they're not necessarily like you.
Yeah, everyone's got an opinion on everything. And I love you can ask 10 analysts what the market's going to do next year, and you'll get 13 different answers.
For sure.
So, and everyone is correct in their mind. And that's just it, is we don't know what's going to happen. There's no way to predict that thing. There's no way to predict what's going to happen with your health or what your expense needs may be, right? We can plan to be adaptable is the key, though, is if we know these things could happen, what is our plan when they do happen? It's that an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So when you're talking about that retirement planning and you're getting all of this information thrown at you, well, you got to think about this, and Social Security is going to go away, so don't plan on that. And that, there's just all this noise that everyone is throwing their opinion, and most of it is pessimistic, shall we say.
Sure.
I've been hearing about Social Security going bankrupt for about 25 years now.
Yeah. I would say if I've been here for decades,
Same
and I
thing
think
with,
so too.
They've been predicting a market crash for the last 4 years. Things happen. It's just have a plan, have an adaptability to that plan, knowing, okay, if the market does this, I'm going to do this. Or if my health does this, I've got this bucket set aside for that. Talk about it. It's not just the investing part of it. It's the taxes, it's the Social Security, it's the healthcare. All of that has to work together to be your retirement plan.
And there's no one portfolio that everybody should be in because it's the best thing ever. There's no one solution of this annuity is the greatest thing ever because you're going to get this much income forever too. That is not and should not be the solution for a one size fits all thing, right?
Yeah.
It needs to be a holistic plan. It needs to be tailored to fit your unique needs, your dreams, your goals, and desires. And that's where we start with that conversation here at Matson Financial to talk about how you should invest, when to claim your Social Security, which Medicare plan to choose. All that noise we will help you with. We'll help craft that plan so you don't feel that side of all the noise and the emotional toll. We want to give you the facts so you can enjoy the retirement that you've worked so hard for.
It's huge when you can tune it out and, again, focus on you and what you're trying to achieve with your retirement. The next do on their list this week is do prepare, though, for the unexpected. But that's the thing. Some of us don't know what the unexpected looks like in retirement. The great thing at Matson Financial, you kind of do. You've seen a lot of things pop up for your clients. You actually run through some of those worst case scenarios, too, with the people you work with.
Yeah, you've got to have an emergency fund, first of all. Like, if I'm building this income plan for you, and we've talked about Social Security and we've talked about the investment strategy to replace and provide that income that you take out of your portfolios, what happens when the furnace breaks? Gerald, we need $7,000. Well,
It's not a fun bill, but it's a true bill that's going to come due.
exactly. So if you have an emergency fund, you can easily adapt to those unplanned expenses, especially if, say the market had gone down for 2 years, like it did in 2008, 2009. We've got this income bucket set for your income for 2 years. But if it takes 2 years to get any growth in the market, you're going to use that up. And if you start pecking away at that, taking more than what we planned for, well, now we're going to have to start selling some things at a loss to give you that income, which is never the hallmarks of a successful plan. You got to have adaptability and you got to have reserve funds.
All right. Good to know there. Number 4 on their list here is do also keep your plan on track. And I think, that might seem a little daunting at times, but you actually help people keep on track while also building in flexibility with their planning too.
Yeah, I mean, life changes and my gosh, taxes change every year. Life's going to change every year. Markets are going to change. The economy, all of these things that you don't necessarily have control over. So you need to make sure that your plan is flexible. Yes, it needs to meet your needs, especially your income goals. But aside from that, there has to be flexibility because we don't know if you're going to need long-term care, if you're going to go into a home, things like that. And I think when it comes to having a trusted advisor and a firm there, they should be watching out for you, obviously monitoring your portfolio, but that means communicating regularly with you to talk about what's happening. We talk about our investing philosophy right in the beginning. I know Gerald's mentioned that a couple times in the show to say, hey, what happens when the markets are up? What happens with your portfolio? What about when they're down? What do those conversations look like? You need to ask your advisor those things from the beginning. And then you can see, hey, when markets are up, are we harvesting gains like you talked about? When markets are down, what are we doing to buy low, right? Those are those opportunities. And so those are our fundamentals. So what are your fundamentals with your advisor look like is one thing I would be asking you too.
Now let's get to the 4 don'ts here with Gerald and Laurel this weekend. Number 1 on their list here, and this is a big one, especially right now, and especially over these last few years, and that is don't ignore inflation. Because as we've learned here, Gerald and Laurel, inflation can really eat away at your purchasing power. Your dollars don't stay stagnant, and your purchasing power doesn't stay stagnant over the course of a 30 or even 40-year retirement.
I mean, we've all seen it. We've gone grocery shopping. We've seen the auto insurance rates. We've seen the Christmas presents that we're buying this year, right? Everything is more expensive. It's the cost of what we typically do. As those costs increase, everything goes back to that COVID kind of as the tipping point. Because pre-COVID, there was not a lot of inflation growth. So we didn't see those huge costs year over year. But the downside was people weren't getting very big raises. There was no cost of living adjustments. Social Security didn't really move. And then we get post-COVID and we see inflation of 9% in 1 year. Like, that was ridiculous.
Right?
So,
Thank gosh, that's gone, at least for now.
Yeah.
again, it's nothing that you can predict, but you have to have a plan that builds in for just the average of inflation, right? Some years we may get 9%, some years it's going to be 0. But if you're not talking about inflation within your income plan for your retirement, it's like you're not talking about taxes either. It's kind of the same thing. You have to have a plan. You have to talk about it and make sure you're getting your returns that are going to at least keep pace with inflation.
That means when you're looking at your income plan with an advisor, you're going to see, hey, my income goal is $50,000 a year. Well, you shouldn't see $50,000 line item or itemized, right, every single year. That has to grow. So that needs to be one thing you need to look at.
All right, good to know. And check your plan for that. Understand what that actual inflation number looks like within your plan. Even if you have a pension or something like that, understanding how that's going to grow with you too. And if you want to talk to your money mentors about that, we'll tell you more in just moments here about how you can customize that strategy with Matson Financial Services. Next on the don't list here, though, is don't overlook the fees that you're paying. Again, something that can really bite into your savings if you're not careful.
Yeah, I mean, just like inflation, that can deplete a nest egg over time. And there's a lot of things to analyze when it comes to fees because maybe you're invested in mutual funds. So there's a mutual fund expense ratio. What about 12B1 fees and the annual fee that you're paying? Annuity fees, if you're especially in a variable annuity, those are very high. And then the side of things being the advisory fees. And what about trade fees? So one thing I love about what we've built here at Matson Financial is our transparency when it comes to fees, is we've got a one approach with that. So we want to make sure that no matter what you're invested in or what we suggest that we're moving portfolios in, we don't have trade fees because we're here to work in your best interests. And so it removes that completely from the table. But you need to ask these questions to your advisor. And if you're one of those individuals that you just don't know, we're happy to run you a fee analysis as well as a part of our plan so you can see how does this all actually look and, what am I paying for what is the value and the benefit that I'm getting? That's really the piece to weigh.
Number 3 on their list here. This is important because right now a lot of stocks out there are doing very well. A lot of companies are doing very well. But number 3 is don't chase the sizzle necessarily. How do you evaluate, though, what's hot, what's not, and where people should be positioned?
I haven't heard it called the sizzle.
The sizzle.
Funny.
Sizzle.
Well, yeah, I think it's, if you think about just the last year, maybe 2 years, everyone knows, say, NVIDIA. That's the company out in the news every night. NVIDIA's up this amount or that amount. So everyone wants that next hot thing. And chances are, when you're hearing about it,
too late.
It's probably already too late. But that doesn't change your emotional reaction because, NVIDIA is a great company. They've shown a lot of great returns. But, I think the most common one people think about now is Bitcoin. If you go back a year, it was only around 44,000 a coin. Just before the election, it was around 60. Now it's at 107. You've seen growth of 158% in 1 year. And everyone's like, I want to get into that.
Right.
Let's talk about it, right? There's nothing wrong with taking risk, but it has to be measured. You have to, as with any investment, by having diversification, yes, you can get growth, but it opens you up to more risk. What can your portfolio handle? What is your risk capacity? So if you invested in the sizzle, and what if it drops? And what if that bubble pops and you lost half of that investment? If it went down 50%, would your retirement still be okay?
And that's different if you're in your 30s and 40s, right?
Correct.
That's a different conversation than somebody who's, I'm ready to retire. I don't think home runs and strikeouts is what you're after, right? You're looking for reliability. Who cares if it's boring?
Yep.
You need reliability to know, like you do while you're working. You have this steady paycheck that comes in. So you want to make sure you're looking at investing in companies that have those strong fundamentals, right? They show consistent earnings. You are fully and truly diversified, and it's reliable.
Mm-hmm. That can actually be exciting in retirement. Boring.
Yeah, money is exciting to make sure you have it there. Yeah.
Exactly. And that leads to number 4. And Gerald kind of alluded to this too. Don't get emotional. There's certainly been a lot to be emotional about these last few years. I mean, going back to inflation, I know we've gotten emotional about it here on Money Mentors as we talk about the monthly numbers that come in. Certainly a lot of people have gotten emotional this past year about the election and all the issues that have come up with that. But at the same time, I mean, if you let let the emotions take over in these cases, you've missed out on a lot of opportunity when it comes to higher interest rates. Again, a really strong market despite all the news. So emotions can really get the best of us, though, if we're not careful.
Yeah, make no mistakes about it. The market will have emotional swings. Like you'll see reactions to, one set of data or if something happens geopolitically, you'll see the market react to it. But very quickly, usually it responds once that initial reaction of that event takes over. Like, yes, COVID, go back to February of 20, between late February and late March, so in a matter of a month, you saw the market drop 45%. But by August, it was back to where it was pre-COVID. So, yeah, there's a lot more going on there, but just it's that emotional reaction. You'll see it in the markets, but you have to rise above that and just, again, long term. You're not day trading for your retirement. You're not in and out every day and looking to make that quick buck. You want to have the nice and steady, like Laurel said, there's nothing wrong with being invested in a Microsoft or something. Yeah. Are they going to turn heads when the earnings reports come out? Not necessarily. It's not going to turn the heads at any ball, but, it'll always be there. It'll be that nice steady rock that you can rely on, and it'll have good years. And yes, it'll have bad years, but generally speaking, you're going to see a nice long-term plan that's going to provide that stability for you in retirement. You don't want emotions to cloud what your investment direction looks like in retirement.
And think about it. If you get out because you said, I can't handle it anymore. I just want out, move to cash. When is the time you're going to get back in? Right?
Yeah.
That's going back to what Gerald said, timing the market. Like, you're probably going to lose at every single turn of that decision. And so that's just a hard place to play.
Yeah. Again, that might even be harder than the decision to get out. When do you get back in? And how many times have we seen that? Yeah, over the years as people got out, they never knew when to get back in after a 2008 type scenario or that kind of thing. So true.
But I do think that kind of comes back to that investor doesn't have a lot of confidence in their advisor and that firm and the education, because that's not what we see here at Mattson Financial. We see the people calling and being like, blue light special, time to buy, because they get it and they know our philosophy. So if you're one of those where you feel like, I just have that gut-wrenching feeling, maybe it's time for that second opinion.
Yeah. And here's why that investment philosophy is so important too. We finally get to the never on the Kiplinger list this weekend here on Money Mentors, and that is never pursue the hot tip. And I can think of so many cases where friends, family, others have given the hot tip over the years. Like, I got into Netflix. You got to get into Netflix, Jennifer. I did this with my Roth this year. I put everything into the Roth this year. You must do this year.
Yeah.
The hot tips never quite work out the way that people intend. And that's the thing. It's just not good to listen to someone else's advice when they don't know you and your financial situation, right?
Right. Yeah. That risk capacity, that risk profile may be different. Their goals may be different. Their nest egg may be different. I have clients that ask my opinion on, specific stocks or things like that. And hey, I'm going to talk to them about how it would affect their plan, right? That's what my clients want to know is like, hey, can I do this? Or I heard this, or sometimes it's not even I heard that. Hey, I've been doing my own research. And I'm liking this. Hey, let's talk about it. That's what I'm here for. My job is to give recommendations for you, and let's talk through the good and the bad. There's going to be pitfalls and there's going to be opportunities. Let's just try and make the best of all of those situations. So hot tips are great. They may be good for you. They may not be good for you, but it cannot be part of that just one-all-be-all retirement plan.
Want weekly lessons from your money mentors? Yes. Hit the subscribe button now and listen every weekend on Wood Radio.
The opinions expressed in this program are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or on any specific security. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult your financial advisor prior to investing. Any past performance discussed during this program is no guarantee of future results. Fee-based financial planning and investment services are offered by Matson Financial Services, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Insurance products and services offered through Lakeview Financial Group, LLC, Matson Financial Services, LLC, and Lakeview Financial Group are affiliated. To find out if Matson Financial Services is licensed in your state, please call 800-536-8907.